The giants recorded in the Old Testament according to historic times. Let's start with Genesis 6 and I'll read it for you. The Old Testament, first chapter, first book that is, chapter 6, Wickedness in the World. When humans began to increase in number on the earth and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of humans were beautiful, and they married any of these they chose. And the Lord said, My spirit will not contend with humans forever, for they are mortal. Their days will be 120 years. The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward, when the sons of God went to the daughters of humans and had children by them. They were the heroes of old, men of renown. The Lord saw how great the wickedness of the human race had become on the earth, and that every inclination of the thoughts of the human heart was only evil at the time. The Lord regretted that he had made human beings on the earth, and his heart was deeply troubled. So the Lord said, I will wipe from the face of the earth the human race I have created, and with them the animals, the birds, the creatures that move along the ground, for I regret that I have made them. But Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. Noah and the flood. The account of Noah and his family. Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, and he walked faithfully with God. Noah had 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Now the earth was corrupt in God's sight and was full of violence. God saw how corrupt the earth had become, for all the people on the earth had corrupted their ways. And God said to Noah, I'm going to put an end to all people of the earth, for the earth is filled with violence because of them. I'm surely going to destroy both them and the earth. So make yourself an ark of cypress wood, make rooms in it and coat it with pitch inside and out. This is how you are to build it. The ark is to be 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide and 30 cubits high. Make a roof for it, leaving below the roof an opening 1 cubit high all around, and put a door on the side of the ark and make lower, middle, and upper decks. I'm going to bring floodwaters on the earth to destroy all life under the heavens, every creature that has breath of life in it. Everything on earth will perish, but I will establish my covenant with you, and you will enter the ark, you and your sons, and your wife and your sons' wives with you. You are to bring into the ark 2 of all living creatures, male and female, to keep them alive with you, 2 of every kind of bird, of every kind of animal, and of every kind of creature that moves along the ground will come to you to be kept alive. You are to take every kind of food that is to be eaten and store it away as food for you and for them. Noah did everything just as God commanded him. And now I go on with the article, and I'm translating this from Greek. Unlike other mythologies, the Old Testament is more realistic about the existence and creation of the giants. So according to the Old Testament, when the human race began to multiply, then the people of God who came from the generation of Seth saw the daughters of corrupt people from the generation of Cain, and they were beautiful and took them for their wives. From the union of God's people with the corrupt daughters of men, the giants also descended. And they lived in the ancient times and were famous for that, but like other people, they too were mired in sin and corruption. God, when he saw the flesh of man, decided to limit the life of humans to 120 years, according to Genesis 6, 1-4. Before this narrative, people's lives were much longer. According to the Bible narrative, Adam lived 930 years. Seth lived 912, and Enos lived 905, Canaan 910, Malaleel 895, Jared 962, Enoch 365, Methuselah 969, and Lamech 777 years. At the time that Moses sent the 12 spies to the promised land, the giant offspring of Anak lived in Hebron. The spies started from the Paran desert of the Sinai Peninsula, searching all over the country from the Sinai desert to Rav, north of the road of Aimath. Then they returned to the desert and came to Hebron, where Ahima, Sesai, and Thalami, descendants of the giant Enan, lived. That's according to Numbers 13 and Deuteronomy 1. The word giant in the Old Testament is Nephil. Nephil is giant, which means strong, oppressive, tyrant, giant. It appears 3 times in the Old Testament: Genesis 6:4, Numbers 13:33. The plural is described to the word Nephilim. One giant is Nephil, and Nephilim is many giants. The giants mentioned in the Old Testament are also called Raphaim, or Raphait, according to Deuteronomy 2:11. They are the same giants as those of all other traditions. From the above narrative, we can deduce that after the creation of man by God, there were 2 generations of people. The generations of Seth, that is to say, the people who lived near God, and the generations of Cain, the people who lived far from God and were immersed in sin and corruption. At some point, however, they began to marry, causing the entire human race to turn away from God and to be lost in sin. One of the effects of this union was the birth of the giants, who, as it appears elsewhere in the Old Testament, prevailed on earth. Also, as shown in the descriptions, most of the giants were lost by some war they had with the normal people. This is according to the wars of the Titans, or Giantomachy, of the ancient Greek legends. They fought between them, and others by the God-given flood to wipe out evil and corruption from the earth. Whatever the theory, however, it's important that the flood, whether global or local, saved enough people, including many of the giants. According to the Bible, the area in which some of the Nephilim giants survived was Vasan, called the land of giants, according to Deuteronomy 3:13. Basan. It's a mountainous area east of the Sea of Galilee, suitable for surviving the cataclysmic earthquake. There, the giants existed not only after the flood, but also in the days of Abraham and Moses. That's way after the flood. Moses was like 1,400, 500 BC. When Hodolomor and his allies went to fight with the army of Sodom and Gomorrah, in their passage they cut down the giants in the cities of Astaroth and Karnaim at Vasan, according to Genesis 14:5. In the Old Testament, the spies of Moses' day, they found Nephilim in Canaan, according to Numbers 13:33, even calling the giants Nephilim. In other verses, such as Deuteronomy 1:28, referring to the same event, he identifies Nephilim with Anakim. The word Anakim in the Bible relates to all breeds of giants that lived around the Sea of Galilee, such as the Raphaimus, the Amians, and the Zumzumin, who were annihilated by the descendants of Lot. Deuteronomy 2:10. The anecdotes were mighty and tall, Numbers 13:22 and 13:33, Deuteronomy 9:1. At the time Moses sent the 12 spies to the promised land, the giant offspring of Anak, or Enak, and his sons Ahima, Susi, and Tholami, according to Numbers 13, lived in Hebron. Deuteronomy 1:28, Joshua 15:14, and Judges 1:10. When Moses gave the final instructions to the Israelites, he spoke of the descendants of Anak, who were all tall people, lived in high-walled cities, and were strong militarily. Deuteronomy 9:1-2. At this point, we have a description of the giants by the detectives that Moses, the spies, the 12 spies that Moses had sent to spy on the inhabitants of Canaan. They said they were like locusts, and they saw us as such. They were like locusts, and they saw us as such. We to them appeared as locusts, and they saw us as such. Okay? So the spies were of the size of locusts towards a man. Anyway, This is according to Numbers 13:27, Deuteronomy 1:24. Og was the last king of the Amorites who lived in Basan. Og was the only one left of the generation of the giants in Basan, according to Deuteronomy 3 and Joshua 12. His bed was iron and was kept in the Acropolis of the Ammonites. The length of his bed was about 4.5 meters. 4.5 meters, 12, 13, 14, about 14 feet. And the width was about 2.2 meters. This is according to Deuteronomy 3:11. So it's about 14, 15 feet tall. Now, before entering Canaan, the Israelites arrived in Basan. Basan's king Og went out with his army to fight them. The Israelites attacked Basan and its army at Hydra. They killed Og and his sons, as did all the people, and took possession of the land, according to Numbers 21, Deuteronomy 3, and Joshua 12. When Joshua conquered the cities of southern Canaan, he also conquered Hebron. The city was besieged and occupied by Caleb. This is in Joshua 14:6. Hebron at the time was inhabited by the giant Anakites at the time. The city was then called Arvok or Kiriath Arva or Kiriath Arva Sefer. Avra city. Avra is the most magnificent man among the Anakites, according to Joshua 14:5 and Judges 1. Caleb, under the command of Joshua, captured Hebron, which was the capital of the Anakites, and exterminated Anak's 3 sons, Ahima, Susi, and Tholamis. Now, so Joshua annihilated the giants, Anakim, who lived in Hebron, David, Anaboth, and throughout the mountainous region of the tribe of Judah and Israel. He destroyed them and destroyed their cities. The descendants of the giant Anak were no longer left in the country, but only a few in Gaza, Gath, and Asadoth, according to Joshua 11. When Joshua conquered the cities of southern Canaan, he annihilated the giants Anakim, who lived in Hebron, David, Anaboth, and throughout the mountainous regions of the tribe of Judah and Israel. He destroyed them and destroyed their cities. The descendants of the giant Anak were no longer left in Canaan, but only a few in Gaza, Gath, and Ashdod, according to Joshua 11. Halab was besieged by Hebron. Caleb, under Joshua's command, captured Hebron, which was the capital of the Anakites, and exterminated the 3 sons, Anak, Ahima, and Susi, and Tolami. Following the settlements of the Israelites on the land of the prophet, these high-ranking tribes were annihilated and no longer remained Anakim in Israel, only in Gaza, Gath, and in the height of about, in Geth, its height was about 2.5 meters. The height of the giants were 2.5 meters. Okay, I think I missed something. Geth in Azot. Azot. They remained and intermingled with the Philistines. Okay, the giants that remained in Gaza, Geth, and Azot stayed there, and they intermingled with the Philistines, according to Joshua 11:21. One of them was Goliath of Gath. His height was about 2.5 meters. That's about 8 feet tall, 9 feet tall. He was wearing a helmet on his head and a chain of copper and iron, weighing about 50 kilograms. He had bronze leggings on his feet and a bronze shield on his shoulders. His spear was thick and large like the loom, and his iron spear weighed about 6.5 kilograms, according to 1 Kings 17. During David's duel with Goliath, After the giant's ironic remarks to the holy David, he stretched out his hand in the sack, grabbed a stone, and he slung it against the giant. In other words, David using a slingshot. Grabbed a stone and slung it at the giant. The stone pierced the helmet and landed on Goliath's forehead, right in between his eyes, which was he was mortally wounded and fell to the ground. Then David stood over the seriously injured Goliath, pulled the sword out of the Philistine's case, and struck him, severing his head, according to 1 Kings 17. After Saul's 7 descendants were killed by the Gibeonites, David ordered the son of Joah, a descendant of the giants, to descend and take over the corpses which David buried with Saul's bones, of Jonathan in the tomb of Kish, and of his father Saul. After several years, there were new battles between the Philistines and the Israelites. The first battle was also attended by David, who was tired because of his old age. Among the Philistines was Joshua, one of the descendants of Jesu, one of the descendants of the giants. His javelin weighed more than 30 copper rugs, about 3,500 grams. That's about 3.5 kilos. He was chained to a bat, and with that he determined to kill David. But Abisai rushed in and helped David. He struck down the Philistine Jesu and killed him, according to 2 Kings 21. After this battle, a new battle took place in Gath, the district of Gaza, between the Israelites and the Philistines. There, Sevocha from Astatoth killed the giant Saphu. In another battle in the Gob area, Elianan, son of Eriorgim, Jair of Bethlehem, killed Lachmi, the brother of the giant Goliath of Gath, whose lance wood was like a loom. In another fight again in the area of Gath, there was a giant bald man who had 6 fingers on his hand and feet. He had 24 fingers in total. He was persecuted by the Israelites, but Jonathan, son of Shammah, or Shemi, the nephew of David, killed him. All 4 of these warriors were the last descendants of the giants from Raphah's house in Gath, and were killed by David and his soldiers, 2 Kings 21. So in David's day, the last giants in Israel were killed at least. This is from the article from Diadrastika that I'm translating it from. But I want to say, though, it's not, okay, these were the last giants in Israel that were killed at least. But there were other giants besides the ones in Israel. Okay, so we have the other giants that were in the east of Israel, and we know that Alexander the Great, according to the historians' accounts of the abominable races, the Nephilim that he met there, he was in charge of doing away with them also, and the ones he couldn't do away with, he threw in pits and poured certain metals over the openings and built pyramids over them. And that's why it's said that a lot of these pyramids in the east, especially in China, should not be opened because they have the Nephilim down there. They should not be opened and for people to excavate to see what they're going to find, because these Nephilim are supposedly imprisoned there. So that's what I wanted to tell you about what Alexander the Great did. And I'll leave a link below for you, but this is from Diadrastika. And please leave your comments. We know that, of course, the giants were around. We even had, from previous videos that we did yesterday, the day before, we found that the hero of the Trojan War, of Achilles, was in fact a giant. And also Orestes, Agamemnon's son, again, one of the heroes of the Trojan War, he was also a giant. And the shield that Achilles used was 150 kilos. It took over 3 men to lift it. And this is what was reported by the historians that went along with Alexander the Great, because when Alexander the Great got to Asia Minor, after he cut the Gordian knot with his sword, he went to visit the tomb of Achilles, and that's where he found that his shield was so huge. And obviously the fact that it was so huge because Achilles himself was such a giant. So was Orestes. So this is what we learned from the videos that I did a couple of days ago, and that was a shock to me too, because I didn't know they were giants. Tell me what you think about this. There are those who think that these Atlantean Nephilim Anunnaki entities that used to live on Earth during the Atlantean period, some of them did escape, according to the Emerald Tablets written by Thoth the Atlantean, and that they went to various locations of the Earth and rebuilt pyramids and used their technology. And as Manly P. Hall tells us, he believes that a lot of these UFOs that we're seeing could be the spaceships from these ancient Atlanteans that are still alive today. They used to live thousands of years, and they had very advanced technology. They even had space travel, and they had time travel and interdimensional travel. In other words, they were able to change their frequency and disappear from our eyesight. So by going into another frequency, they would disappear because we can't see all frequencies, and that's another dimension that they would enter. Anyway, this is the type of technology that they had, according to Thoth the Atlantean, as he explained to us in the Emerald Tablets. And I have a playlist if you want to listen to those, because there's so much information in there that will answer a lot of questions if you have concerning what was going on before the Great Flood, or one of the many great floods, where Atlantis was destroyed. And Thoth claims that a lot of Atlanteans did go to other areas of the Earth, and they also became the deities of those areas, just like Thoth was the deity of ancient Egypt. And from there, it's said that he built the Giza pyramids. It was Thoth who did that. Thoth also tells us that he had a spaceship and that he buried it under a sphinx in the plateau of pyramids. Now, could it be that his spaceship is under the sphinx of the Giza plateau? That's another huge question that we have to ascertain, the answer to. Anyway, tell me what you think. Obviously, we had giants. We don't know if they're still among us today. If they are Atlanteans, they're hiding perhaps in underground cities, as they were in the time of Thoth. They had luxurious underground cities, as they have found under the Saqqara pyramids in Egypt and the Giza plateaus, and also perhaps, as the Native American Indian legends tell us, the fact that these pale prophets or ancient aliens who visited North America were living in luxurious underground dwellings, underground cities. That sounds a lot like what Atlanteans used to do. And the ancient Egyptians, the underground luxurious cities with thousands of rooms have been found in Saqqara, under the pyramids of Saqqara. And also, they say that there is a luxurious underground palace, floors deep, under the Giza pyramids. So please tell me what you think about all this. Obviously, we know that there were giants in the earth in those days, and even after that, according to the book of Genesis, chapter 6. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.